My name is Keisha. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. 3 months ago, a phone call at 3 a.m. destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Everything I thought I knew about the man I had been sharing my bed with for 8 years. When I answered my husband's phone that night, a woman on the other end said 5 words that made my blood run cold. She said, "Put my husband on the phone." And what she told me next? I still can't believe I didn't see it coming. I still can't believe I was that blind, that stupid, that trusting. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how perfect I thought my life was before it all came crashing down. Before I tell you how I exposed my husband's double life, how I uncovered a web of lies so deep it still makes me sick to my stomach, I need you to do something for me. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel if you're new here, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of my stories. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I want to know who's riding with me on this one. Trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end of this story, because what I discovered about my husband, it's worse than anything you could imagine. And the revenge I got? Oh, it was sweet. So get comfortable, grab your snacks, and let me tell you about the night my whole world fell apart. Let me tell you about Marcus Thompson, my husband, the father of my 2 beautiful children, the man I thought I would grow old with. We met 9 years ago at a friend's barbecue here in Atlanta. He was fine, I'm not gonna lie. Tall, dark skin, perfect smile, and he had this confidence about him that just drew me in. He walked up to me like he already knew I was gonna be his wife someday. And foolish me, I fell for it. I fell for every single word that came out of his lying mouth. We dated for a year before he proposed. It was this big romantic gesture at a fancy restaurant downtown. He got down on one knee, pulled out this gorgeous ring, and asked me to spend the rest of my life with him. I said yes before he even finished the question. I was so in love, so completely, foolishly, blindly in love with this man. We got married 8 years ago in a beautiful ceremony. My whole family was there. His whole family was there. And I remember looking at him at that altar thinking I was the luckiest woman in the world. I thought God had blessed me with the perfect man, a man who would love me, protect me, cherish me, and be faithful to me until death do us part. That's what he promised. That's what he stood up there and swore to God, to our families, to me. And I believed every single word. For 8 years, I believed I was living the dream. We bought a beautiful house in a nice neighborhood. We had 2 kids together. My daughter Aaliyah is 7 now, and my son Marcus Jr. is 5. I named my son after his father because I thought his father was a man worth honoring. I thought his father was a man my son should look up to, should aspire to be like. God, I was so stupid. Marcus had a good job as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. At least, that's what he told me. He traveled a lot for work, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, but he always came home with gifts for me and the kids. He always called to say goodnight. He always told me he loved me and couldn't wait to get back home to his family. And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. He had never given me any reason to doubt him. Our neighbors used to tell me how lucky I was. My own mother used to say she wished my father had been half the husband Marcus was. My girlfriends were jealous. They would complain about their no-good men while I sat there feeling blessed because my husband wasn't like that. My husband was different. My husband was one of the good ones. He would bring me flowers for no reason. He would plan date nights and surprise me with jewelry on our anniversary. He was good with the kids, always playing with them, helping with homework, coaching Marcus Jr.'s Little League team when he was in town. He went to church with us on Sundays, held my hand during service, and said amen in all the right places. Everyone thought he was perfect. I thought he was perfect. But you know what they say, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. I just never thought that would apply to my own marriage. I never thought the man sleeping next to me every night was living a whole other life when he walked out that door. Looking back now, I can see the signs. I can see all the little red flags I ignored, all the warning signals I explained away, because I didn't want to believe my perfect husband could be anything less than perfect. But at the time, I was blind. I was so caught up in the fairy tale that I refused to see the truth that was right in front of my face. It started about a year ago, little things at first, so small I barely noticed them. Marcus started keeping his phone face down all the time. He said the screen lighting up was distracting him. He changed his passwords, and when I asked why, he said his company required them to update for security purposes. Made sense, right? Why would I question that? Then the business trips started increasing. He used to travel maybe once or twice a month, but suddenly it was every week. Sometimes he'd be gone for 3 or 4 days at a time. He said the company was expanding, that he was being considered for a promotion, that he needed to put in the extra work now so we could enjoy the rewards later. And stupid me, I supported him. I told him I was proud of him. I held down the house and the kids while he was gone, and I never once complained because I thought he was doing it all for us. The late nights started too. He'd come home from the office at 9, 10, sometimes 11 at night. He said there were deadlines, meetings, reports that needed to be finished. He'd come home exhausted, eat the dinner I kept warm for him, and fall asleep on the couch. I felt bad for him. I thought my poor husband was working himself to the bone for our family. I would rub his shoulders and tell him not to work so hard, and he would kiss my forehead and say it would all be worth it soon. My friends started making comments. My girl Tanya said it was strange how much he was traveling. My sister Denise said she didn't trust a man who was gone that much, but I defended him. I got angry at them for even suggesting something was wrong. I told them they were just jealous because their relationships weren't as strong as mine. I told them Marcus loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. I pushed away the people who were trying to warn me because I didn't want to hear the truth. There were other things too. He started going to the gym more, getting in better shape than he'd been in years. He bought new cologne, new clothes, started caring more about his appearance. I thought he was just taking better care of himself. I thought maybe he was trying to look good for me. I was flattered. I didn't realize he was looking good for someone else. Sometimes his stories didn't quite add up. He'd mention a restaurant in a city he supposedly wasn't in. He'd forget details about trips he'd told me about. Once, he said he was in Chicago for a conference, but when I called the hotel to leave him a message, they said they had no guest by that name. When I asked him about it, he said the reservation must have been under the company name. I believed him. I always believed him. The intimacy between us changed too. We went from making love multiple times a week to barely once a month. He always had an excuse. He was tired. He was stressed. He had a lot on his mind. I started wondering if something was wrong with me. I bought new lingerie, tried to spice things up, but nothing worked. He'd just pat my hand and tell me he loved me, but he was exhausted. Meanwhile, I now know exactly where all his energy was going. There was one night, maybe 6 months ago, that should have been my wake-up call. It was about 2 in the morning, and I woke up because I reached for Marcus and he wasn't there. I found him in the living room on his phone, texting someone. When I asked who he was talking to at that hour, he nearly jumped out of his skin. He said it was his co-worker about an urgent project. He put the phone away real quick and came back to bed. I should have pushed harder. I should have demanded to see that phone. But I trusted him. I trusted my husband, and that trust was the biggest mistake of my life. Now let me tell you about the night everything changed. The night my whole world came crashing down around me. I remember it like it was yesterday. I will remember it for the rest of my life. It was a Tuesday night. The kids were asleep, and Marcus had gotten home late from work as usual. He took a shower and came to bed around 11. He fell asleep almost immediately, which wasn't unusual. The man was always tired lately. I remember lying there next to him, watching him sleep, thinking about how much I loved him, thinking about how lucky I was. If I had known then what I know now, I would have been packing his bags instead of counting my blessings. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound. It took me a second to realize it was Marcus's phone buzzing on the nightstand. It wasn't just one notification. It kept buzzing, over and over, like someone was calling. Marcus didn't even stir. That man could sleep through anything, I swear. I should have just ignored it. I should have gone back to sleep and let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up that phone. Call it intuition. Call it God trying to show me the truth. Call it whatever you want. Something made me reach over and grab that phone. The screen showed an unknown number. Now normally I wouldn't answer my husband's phone in the middle of the night. That's not something I ever did. But that night, something was different. Something in my gut was telling me to answer. So I did. I put the phone to my ear and said hello. There was a pause on the other end, and then a woman's voice came through. She sounded angry, aggressive, like she was ready for a fight. And the first words out of her mouth made my heart stop. "Put my husband on the phone." I remember blinking in the darkness, trying to process what I'd just heard. I thought she had the wrong number. I thought there had been some kind of mistake. So I said, "Excuse me? I think you have the wrong number." And this woman laughed. She laughed at me. And then she said something that changed my life forever. "No, I don't have the wrong number. I'm looking for Marcus Thompson, and I'm his wife." The room started spinning. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My husband was lying right next to me, and there was a woman on the phone claiming to be his wife. This had to be a joke. This had to be some kind of sick prank. But something in her voice told me she was dead serious. I got out of bed and walked into the hallway because I didn't want to wake Marcus. Not yet. Not until I understood what was happening. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. "What did you just say?" I whispered. "You heard me," she said. "My name is Danielle Thompson. I've been married to Marcus for 3 years. We have a 2-year-old son together, and I just found your number in his phone. Listed under K with a heart emoji. So who the hell are you?" I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling down. This couldn't be real. This could not be happening. I had been married to Marcus for 8 years. We had 2 children together. Our wedding photos were hanging on the walls of this very house. And now some woman was telling me she was his wife too? "I'm Keisha," I finally managed to say. "I've been married to Marcus for 8 years. We have 2 kids. I don't know who you are or what kind of game you're playing, but you need to stop." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Danielle spoke again, her voice had changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something else. Confusion, pain, the same things I was feeling. "8 years?" she said. "That's not possible. I've been with Marcus for 5 years. We got married 3 years ago. He told me he had never been married before. He told me I was his first wife." And that's when it hit me. That's when I realized this woman wasn't lying. She wasn't playing games. She was just as much a victim as I was. My husband, the man I had loved and trusted for almost a decade, had been living a double life. He had another wife, another family, another whole existence that I knew nothing about. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor of my hallway, tears streaming down my face. This woman, this stranger, was crying too. I could hear her trying to hold it together on the other end of the line. 2 women, hundreds of miles apart, both married to the same man, both finding out the truth at 3 a.m. on a random Tuesday. "Where are you?" I asked her. "Memphis," she said. He told me he travels to Atlanta for work. And suddenly it all made sense. All those business trips, all those late nights, all those times he was supposedly working so hard for our family. He wasn't working. He was with her. He was with his other wife and his other child in Memphis, Tennessee, living a whole other life like we didn't even exist. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake him up right then and there and demand answers. But Danielle said something that made me stop. "Wait," she said. "Before you confront him, let's talk. Let's compare notes. Because if he's been lying to both of us this whole time, I want to know everything. I want to know every single lie he's told, and then I want to make him pay." Something in her voice resonated with me. This woman wasn't my enemy. She was my ally. We had both been betrayed by the same man, and instead of fighting each other, we could fight him together. So I agreed. I crept back into the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and went downstairs to the kitchen. Marcus didn't move a muscle. He had no idea that his whole empire of lies was about to come crumbling down. Danielle and I talked until the sun came up. We compared everything, every lie, every excuse, every trip and late night and suspicious behavior. It was like putting together the pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. She told me her story first. She met Marcus 5 years ago at a business conference in Memphis. He told her he was a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company, which was partly true. What he didn't tell her was that he already had a wife and 2 kids in Atlanta. He pursued her, charmed her, made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. Sound familiar? because that's exactly what he did to me. They dated for 2 years before he proposed. She said it was romantic, a surprise trip to Miami where he got down on one knee on the beach. She had no idea he'd already done the same thing for me years before. They got married in a small ceremony, just family and close friends. She wore a white dress and thought she was starting her happily ever after, just like I did. Then she got pregnant. She said Marcus was so happy, so excited to be a father. Except he already was a father. He already had 2 kids that he went home to when he wasn't with her. But she didn't know that. She thought she was giving him his first child. Their son is named Marcus Jr., too. Can you believe that? This man had 2 sons, both named after him, with 2 different women who didn't know each other existed. The audacity. The absolute nerve of this man to name both his sons the same thing, like we were interchangeable, like our families were interchangeable. Danielle said his schedule with her was similar to what I experienced. He would be home for a few days, then have to travel for work. He missed birthdays, holidays, important moments because he was supposedly on business trips. But now we knew the truth. When he wasn't with her, he was with me. When he wasn't with me, he was with her. He had been playing us both for years, and neither of us had any idea. The more we talked, the more lies we uncovered. His phone habits, his excuses, his schedule that never quite made sense. She had noticed the same things I had. She had asked the same questions and gotten the same explanations. He had perfected his lies over years of practice, feeding us both the same stories with slight variations. But here's where it got even worse. As we were comparing notes, Danielle mentioned something that made my stomach turn. She said sometimes Marcus would get text messages late at night that he said were from coworkers, but she had caught a glimpse of one once, and it was from someone named Jasmine. When she asked him about it, he said Jasmine was just a colleague, nothing to worry about. Jasmine? I said. He's never mentioned a Jasmine to me. We both went quiet, the same horrible thought crossing our minds. What if it wasn't just the 2 of us? What if there was another woman out there? Maybe even more than one. Danielle did some digging on his phone records that she had access to through their shared phone plan. What she found made us both sick. There was a 3rd woman, a woman named Jasmine, who lived in Birmingham, Alabama. They weren't married as far as we could tell, but they had been seeing each other for at least a year. She was probably sitting at home right now thinking she had a committed boyfriend who loved her, not knowing that he had 2 whole wives and families. 3 women, 3 cities, 3 separate lives. This man had been running a whole operation, and none of us had any clue. He had juggled all of us perfectly, kept us all in the dark, made us all believe we were the only one. The level of deception was almost impressive. Almost, if it wasn't so devastating. By the time the sun came up, I had cried more tears than I thought I had in my body. But something else had happened too. The sadness was starting to turn into anger, into rage, into a burning desire to make this man pay for what he had done to me, to Danielle, to our children, to every woman he had ever lied to. Danielle felt the same way. We made a decision that morning. We weren't going to confront him separately. We weren't going to fall apart and let him manipulate us or talk his way out of this. We were going to gather evidence, build our case, and then take him down together. We were going to make sure he lost everything, just like he had made us lose our sense of security, our trust, our belief in love. "I'll be in touch," Danielle said before we hung up. "Don't let him know anything has changed. Act normal. Pretend everything is fine. Can you do that?" I looked at the bedroom door where my husband was still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his lies had finally caught up with him. Could I pretend? Could I look at this man, sleep next to this man, let him kiss me goodbye like everything was normal? "Yes," I said. "I can do that, for as long as it takes." The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to look Marcus in the face every single day and act like nothing was wrong. I had to let him kiss me goodbye in the morning, let him tell me he loved me at night, let him play with our children like he was some kind of devoted family man. Every moment was torture. Every touch made my skin crawl, but I had to keep it together. I had to stay calm and collect as much evidence as possible. I started paying attention to things I had ignored before. When he said he was going on a business trip, I noted the dates and where he said he was going. Then I would check with Danielle to see if he was actually in Memphis with her during those times. 9 times out of 10, the math didn't add up. He had been lying so much and for so long that his stories had become a tangled web of contradictions. I went through our bank statements and credit card records. What I found made my blood boil. He had been spending money on 2 households, 2 sets of bills, 2 families. There were charges at restaurants in Memphis I had never heard of, purchases at stores in Birmingham where Jasmine lived, hotel rooms on nights he told me he was sleeping at the office. The evidence was piling up, and it painted a picture of a man who had been betraying me for years without a single ounce of guilt. Danielle was doing the same thing on her end. She found credit card charges for flowers and jewelry that she had never received, charges at restaurants in Atlanta on nights he was supposedly traveling for work. He had been spending money on me while lying to her, and spending money on her while lying to me, and God knows how much he was spending on Jasmine. We also discovered something that made the whole situation even more infuriating. Marcus had been using company resources to fund his double life. He was filing fake expense reports, padding his travel reimbursements, using his corporate card for personal trips to see his other families. Not only was he a cheater and a liar, but he was also a thief. He was stealing from his company to finance his web of deception. I took screenshots of everything: bank statements, credit card charges, text messages, calendar entries that didn't match his stories. I saved it all to a secret folder on my phone, backed it up to the cloud, and even printed physical copies that I hid in a safe deposit box my mother had at her bank. I wasn't taking any chances. This man had already proven he was capable of elaborate deception, and I wasn't going to let him destroy the evidence if he found out what I was doing. Every night, I would lie in bed next to him and replay the lies in my head. I would think about all the times he said he loved me, all the times he promised to be faithful, all the times he made me believe I was his one and only, and then I would think about Danielle, lying in her bed in Memphis, probably doing the same thing, and Jasmine in Birmingham, completely unaware that her boyfriend had 2 whole families. The rage kept me awake most nights, but it also kept me focused. I was going to destroy this man. I was going to take everything from him, just like he had taken everything from me. The hardest part was keeping it from my kids. They didn't know anything was wrong. They still ran to their daddy when he came home, still believed he hung the moon and stars. I had to watch my babies love and trust a man who didn't deserve either. But I couldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. They were too young to understand, and I wasn't going to let Marcus's sins destroy their innocence before I had to. 3 weeks after that phone call, Danielle and I decided it was time. We had gathered enough evidence to bury Marcus 10 times over. We knew his schedule, his lies, his finances, everything. All that was left was the confrontation. We planned it carefully. Danielle would fly into Atlanta on a Friday afternoon while Marcus was supposedly at work. She would come straight to my house, and we would wait for him together. He always came home around 7 on Fridays, thinking he had the whole weekend with his Atlanta family before he'd make up some excuse to run off to Memphis again. But this Friday would be different. This Friday, he would walk through that door and find both of his wives waiting for him. The day Danielle arrived, I was a nervous wreck. I had sent the kids to my mother's house for the weekend, telling her I needed some alone time with Marcus. She was happy to take them, thinking she was helping us have a romantic weekend. If only she knew. When Danielle knocked on my door, I didn't know what to expect. Here was the other woman, the one my husband had been cheating on me with, standing on my doorstep. But the moment I saw her face, all of that melted away. She looked just as broken as I felt. Her eyes were red from crying, her hands were shaking. She wasn't my enemy. She was my sister in this nightmare. We hugged right there in the doorway, 2 strangers bonded by the worst kind of betrayal. She came inside, looked around at the home I had built with Marcus, at the family photos on the walls, at the evidence of a life she never knew existed, and I saw the pain in her eyes deepen. "He has the same photos in our house," she said quietly. "Family photos, pictures of him and me and our son, like we're his real family." We are both his real family, I said. That's the problem. We sat in the living room and went over the plan one more time. When Marcus walked through that door, we wouldn't yell or scream. We would stay calm, present the evidence, and let him try to explain his way out of this. Not that any explanation could possibly be good enough. There was no excuse for what he had done. But I wanted to watch him try. I wanted to see him squirm and stutter and realize that his lies had finally caught up with him. The hours crawled by. We watched the clock, checked our phones, jumped at every sound. Finally, at 7:15, we heard a car pull into the driveway. We heard the engine turn off. We heard footsteps coming up to the front door. We heard the key turn in the lock. The door opened and Marcus walked in. He was carrying flowers, probably stolen from some gas station on his way home, thinking he was going to have a nice weekend with his wife. He called out, "Babe, I'm home. Where are you?" "In the living room," I answered, keeping my voice as normal as possible. He walked in with that smile on his face, the same smile that had fooled me for years. And then he saw Danielle sitting on the couch, and that smile vanished. His whole face changed. The color drained out of his cheeks. The flowers slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. "What?" he started, looking back and forth between us. "What is this? What's going on?" I stood up slowly, never taking my eyes off him. "Marcus, I think you know Danielle. Your other wife? The one you married 3 years ago? The mother of your other child?" He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. For once in his life, Marcus Thompson was speechless. The master liar, the smooth talker, the man who had an excuse for everything, couldn't find a single word to say. Danielle stood up too. "Hi, husband," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Surprised to see me?" Marcus backed up against the wall, his hands raised like he was surrendering to the police. "Listen," he said, "this isn't what it looks like. I can explain. Just let me explain." "Oh, this is exactly what it looks like," I said. "You have 2 wives, 2 families, 2 children named Marcus Jr., and you've been lying to both of us for years. What is there to explain?" He started stammering, trying to come up with some excuse, some story that would make this okay. "It's complicated," he said. "My life, my situation, you don't understand. I love you both. I never meant to hurt anyone." "You love us both?" Danielle laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You love us so much that you lied to our faces every single day? You love us so much that you made us think we were special when we were just options? That's not love, Marcus. That's selfishness. That's abuse." I had printed out all the evidence and put it in a folder on the coffee table. I picked it up and threw it at him. Papers flew everywhere, bank statements and text messages and photos of his lies scattering across the floor. "That's years of deception," I said. "Credit card charges, phone records, flight itineraries. Every lie you told we have proof of. You're not going to talk your way out of this one, Marcus. The game is over." He looked down at the papers at his feet, and I saw something break in him. The mask he had worn for years finally cracked. His shoulders slumped. His head dropped. And for the first time since I had known him, Marcus Thompson looked like the pathetic, broken man he truly was. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you." "Sorry?" I felt the rage building in my chest. "Sorry doesn't begin to cover this. You stole years of my life. You made me believe in a lie. You made our children believe in a lie, and you did the same thing to her. Sorry is the most insulting thing you could possibly say right now." What happened next was a blur of accusations and tears, and finally, the truth coming out. Marcus tried everything. He tried to blame his childhood, his fear of commitment, his need to be loved. He tried to turn us against each other, suggesting that if I had been a better wife, he wouldn't have needed Danielle. That made both of us see red. "Don't you dare," Danielle said, pointing her finger in his face. "Don't you dare try to blame us for your choices. You chose to lie. You chose to cheat. You chose to create this mess. This is all on you." He tried to beg. He got down on his knees and literally begged us to forgive him, to give him another chance, to let him make it right. It was pathetic. This man who had seemed so strong and confident was reduced to a crying mess on the floor of his own living room. And honestly, I felt nothing. Not pity, not satisfaction, just a cold emptiness where my love for him used to be. We also told him we knew about Jasmine. His head snapped up when we mentioned her name, and for a second I saw real fear in his eyes. He didn't even try to deny it. He just closed his eyes and nodded, like he had known this moment was coming and had finally accepted his fate. "How many others?" Danielle demanded. "Is it just the three of us, or are there more women out there that we don't know about?" "Just you three," he said. "I swear, just you three." But how could we believe anything he said? This man had lied to us for years. His word meant nothing. For all we knew, there were women in every city he had ever visited, all thinking they had a future with him, all being played just like us. After hours of confrontation, Danielle and I were emotionally exhausted. We told Marcus to get out, to go sleep somewhere else, anywhere else, because he wasn't welcome in this house anymore. He tried to argue, tried to say it was his house too, but one look at our faces told him that wasn't a battle worth fighting. He grabbed a bag, threw some clothes in it, and left with his tail between his legs. After he was gone, Danielle and I sat in silence for a long time. We had done it. We had confronted him together. But the victory felt hollow. We were both still left with the wreckage of our lives to sort through. "What now?" she asked. "Now we take everything from him," I said. "Everything he has, everything he loves. We make sure he never does this to anyone, ever again." The next few months were all about the fallout. Danielle and I both filed for divorce within a week of the confrontation. We hired lawyers, sharks who specialized in cases like this. And boy, did Marcus have a lot to answer for. The first thing we did was report his expense report fraud to his company. Turns out, stealing from a pharmaceutical company is a really good way to lose your six-figure job. Marcus was fired within 2 weeks of our report. No severance, no reference, nothing. Just a box of his belongings and a security escort out of the building. Then came the legal battles. Divorce proceedings in 2 states, custody disputes, division of assets. It was complicated because Marcus had technically been committing bigamy. His marriage to Danielle wasn't even legally valid because he was already married to me. She was devastated when she found out, but it actually worked in her favor legally. She could go after him for fraud, for the years she had spent believing she was legally his wife. I got the house. I got primary custody of our kids. I got child support that would be garnished from whatever income he managed to scrape together after losing his career. The judge was not sympathetic to Marcus, not even a little bit. When all the evidence came out in court, even the judge looked at him with disgust. Danielle got a good settlement too: alimony, child support, and a restraining order that kept Marcus from coming within 500 feet of her or their son. She was rebuilding her life in Memphis, and last I heard she was doing really well. As for Jasmine, the girlfriend in Birmingham, we never reached out to her directly. But word travels fast, and I'm pretty sure she found out the truth eventually. I hope she did. I hope she realized what kind of man she was dealing with and ran as far away as possible. Marcus tried everything to salvage the situation. He begged, he pleaded, he sent long emails and text messages swearing he was a changed man. He tried to get our families involved, convincing his mother to call me and plead his case. He even showed up at my mother's house once, trying to see the kids. That ended with my brother threatening to call the police if he didn't leave immediately. He also tried to threaten us. He said if we went through with the divorces, he would make our lives a living hell. He would fight for full custody. He would drag our names through the mud. He would make sure everyone knew we were the villains in this story. But here's the thing about threats from a man who has lost everything. They're empty. Marcus had no money, no job, no reputation left to leverage. His threats were just the desperate flailings of a man who had finally faced the consequences of his actions. The final court date was 6 months after that 3 a.m. phone call. I walked into that courtroom with my head held high and walked out a free woman, divorced from Marcus Thompson, free from his lies, his manipulation, his abuse. It was over. It's been a year now since that phone call changed my life. A year since I found out my husband was living a double life. A year since my whole world fell apart and I had to rebuild it from the ground up. And you know what? I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. My kids are thriving. They had a hard time at first, not understanding why Daddy wasn't living with us anymore. I had to explain it in terms they could understand, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But kids are resilient. With therapy and support and a whole lot of love, they've adjusted. They still see Marcus occasionally, supervised visits that I insisted on. But our home is peaceful now. There's no more lying, no more secrets, no more wondering why Daddy is always gone. I started my own business about 8 months ago. A small consulting firm that's growing every day. For years I had put my dreams on hold to support Marcus's career, and now I'm finally pursuing my own. It feels good. It feels like I'm finally becoming the woman I was always meant to be. Danielle and I still talk regularly. Can you believe that? The other woman, the one I was supposed to hate, has become one of my closest friends. We went through something together that very few people could understand. That kind of experience bonds you in a way that's hard to explain. She's engaged now to a man who treats her like gold, a man who only has one phone, one job, one city, one life. She deserves that happiness after everything Marcus put her through. As for Marcus, last I heard, he's living with his mother in a small apartment on the other side of town. No job, no family, no future. All those years he spent building his empire of lies, and now he has nothing to show for it. Sometimes I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. Then I remember the years of deception, the wasted time, the pain he caused, and that sympathy disappears real quick. He tries to reach out sometimes. Birthday cards for the kids, messages on my phone that I never answer. He says he's changed, he's in therapy, he's working on himself. Maybe he is. I don't really care. That man is no longer my concern. My focus is on my children, my business, my future. He doesn't get any more of my energy. I'm not dating yet. I'm not ready. The trust issues run deep, and it's going to take a long time before I can open my heart to anyone again. But I'm working on it. I'm healing. And someday, when the time is right, I'll be ready to love again. I'll be ready to find someone who deserves my love and who will never make me question their loyalty. For now, I'm happy being on my own. I'm happy being a strong mother to my children, a successful businesswoman, a survivor. Because that's what I am. A survivor of betrayal, of lies, of a man who tried to break me. But I didn't break. I bent, I cracked, I almost shattered, but I did not break, and I never will. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, I want you to hear me. Trust your gut. If something feels off in your relationship, it probably is. Don't ignore the red flags like I did. Don't let love blind you to the truth, because the truth always comes out eventually, and when it does, you want to be prepared. I also want to say this. If you find out your partner is cheating, the other woman is not your enemy. More often than not, she's a victim too. She's been fed the same lies, sold the same dreams, hurt in the same ways. Instead of tearing each other down, we need to lift each other up. We need to turn our pain into power and direct it at the person who actually deserves it. And finally, I want you to know that you can survive this. I know it doesn't feel like it when you're in the middle of it. I know the pain seems unbearable and the betrayal seems unforgivable. But you are stronger than you know. You have the power to rebuild your life, to find happiness again, to become the best version of yourself. It won't happen overnight. It will be hard, it will hurt, and there will be days when you want to give up. But don't. Keep fighting. Keep pushing forward. Because on the other side of this pain is a life that is entirely yours, free from lies and manipulation and people who don't deserve you. I'm living proof of that. I'm Keisha, 34 years old, and I survived my husband's double life. And now I'm thriving. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and show me some love. Subscribe to this channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss another story. I've got plenty more to share, trust me. If you've ever been through something like this, if you've ever been cheated on or lied to, or found out a terrible secret about someone you loved, drop your story in the comments. Let me know I'm not alone, and let me know you're not alone either. We're all in this together, supporting each other, lifting each other up. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for giving me a space to share my pain and my triumph. It means more than you know. Stay blessed, stay aware, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. Never let anyone make you question your worth. Never let anyone make you feel like you deserve anything less than complete honesty and faithful love. My name is Keisha, and this was my story. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, the truth always comes out. Always. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
I stood there at our 25th wedding anniversary party, watching my husband tell a room full of our family and friends that he was leaving me for a 28-year-old. He actually smiled when he said, 25 years is enough. I want someone younger. I want you out of the apartment tomorrow. But what he didn't know, what he forgot in his arrogance, was that the apartment he was kicking me out of, it wasn't his. It was mine. And when I pulled out that property deed and told him he was the one moving out, the look on his face, the silence in that room, it was worth every tear I'd cried. My name is Michelle, and this is the story of how my husband's midlife crisis became the biggest mistake of his life. But before I take you through everything that led to that moment, I want to know, where are you watching this from right now? Are you in Atlanta, like me? Maybe you're in New York, Houston, or London. Drop your city or country in the comments below. I love connecting with you all. And if you're new to Voices of Untold Stories, please hit that subscribe button. We share real stories of betrayal, justice, and triumph here. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this story. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Michelle Thompson. I'm 52 years old, and I work as an office manager at a medical supply company here in Atlanta. For the past 25 years, I thought I knew exactly who I was: a wife, a mother, a partner. But that night at our anniversary party, I discovered I was so much more than that. I was a woman who had forgotten her own power. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this all started. I met Marcus when I was 27 years old. He was 29, charming, ambitious, and had this smile that could light up a room. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue in the summer of 1998. Back then, I was working as an administrative assistant, and he was just starting out as a junior sales rep at a telecommunications company. We clicked immediately. He made me laugh. He had dreams, big dreams, and I loved that about him. Within a year, we were engaged. Within 2 years, we were married at my grandmother's church, the same church where I'd grown up, where I'd learned everything about faith, family, and loyalty. My grandmother, Ruth Williams, was the backbone of our family. She raised me after my mother passed away when I was 12. Grandma Ruth was a strong Black woman who believed in hard work, dignity, and always having something of your own. She used to tell me, "Baby girl, love your husband, but never forget who you are. Always keep something in your name. Always." I didn't fully understand what she meant back then. I thought love was enough. I thought partnership meant everything was ours. But Grandma Ruth knew better. She'd lived through her own struggles, and she was determined that I wouldn't repeat her mistakes. Marcus and I started our life together in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Decatur, Atlanta. We were broke, but we were happy. I remember we had a futon for a couch and a card table for dining, but none of that mattered because we had each other and we had a plan. We wanted to build something real, generational wealth, stability for our future children, a legacy. We talked about it all the time, how we'd sacrifice now so our kids wouldn't have to struggle the way we did. In 2000, I gave birth to our son, Jordan. 2 years later, our daughter, Jasmine, came along. Those early years of parenthood were beautiful chaos. Marcus was working his way up in sales, but the income was inconsistent. Some months were great. Other months, we barely made rent. I became the steady one. I worked full-time, handled all the bills, managed the household, and somehow kept everything afloat while Marcus chased bigger commissions and better territories. I didn't mind. I believed in him. I believed in us. When my grandmother passed away in 2010, she left me a small inheritance, $30,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was her life savings. She'd worked as a housekeeper for 40 years and saved every penny she could. In her will, she left me a letter. I still have it. It said, "Michelle, use this wisely. Buy something that's yours, not yours and Marcus's, just yours. Promise me." I cried reading those words because even from beyond, she was still protecting me. Marcus and I had been saving for years to buy our own place. With Grandma's inheritance and the money I'd saved from bonuses and overtime, we finally had enough for a down payment on a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in Midtown Atlanta. It was perfect, close to good schools for the kids, near my job, and then an up-and-coming neighborhood. When we sat down with the real estate agent, Marcus assumed both our names would go on the deed, but I remembered Grandma Ruth's letter. I remembered her voice, and for reasons I couldn't fully explain at the time, I put the apartment in my name only. Marcus was a little surprised, but I told him it was because my credit score was higher and it would help us get better loan terms. He accepted that explanation. Looking back now, I realized my grandmother's wisdom was working through me even when I didn't fully understand it. That decision, keeping that apartment in my name alone, would become the thing that saved me 15 years later. Our marriage in those early years was solid. We were a team. Marcus eventually landed a great position as a sales manager at a software company, and our financial situation stabilized. We took family vacations, went to church every Sunday, hosted Thanksgiving dinners. The kids were thriving, Jordan playing basketball, Jasmine singing in the church choir. From the outside, we looked like the perfect Black family, and for a long time, we were. Marcus was attentive, loving, and present. He called me my queen. He told me I was beautiful. He thanked me for holding things down when times were tough. But somewhere around year 20, something shifted. At first, I didn't even notice, but looking back now, I can see exactly when the man I married started to disappear and a stranger took his place. And that's where our story really begins, where the foundation we built for 2 decades started to crack. It started so small that I convinced myself I was imagining things. Marcus began working late, really late. 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, he'd come home after 9 o'clock smelling like cologne I didn't recognize. Not the one I'd bought him for Christmas. Something expensive, something new. He joined a gym suddenly, became obsessed with his appearance in a way he'd never been before. New clothes, tighter shirts. He was 52 years old, acting like he was preparing for something. Or someone. My sister, Denise, noticed it before I did. She pulled me aside after Sunday dinner one evening and said, "Michelle, something's off with Marcus. He's different. You see it, right?" I brushed her off. I defended him. I said he was just taking better care of himself, that it was a good thing. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered that she was right. One night, I finally confronted him. I asked him why he was coming home so late, why he suddenly needed a gym membership when we had equipment in the guest room. He looked at me like I'd insulted him. "You're being insecure, Michelle," he said coldly. "I'm working hard for this family, and you're accusing me? That's controlling. That's toxic." He turned it around so smoothly that I actually apologized. I apologized for caring. That should have been my first red flag. Then came the second incident. I wasn't snooping. I want to be clear about that. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower, and I glanced at it. Text messages from someone named Bria. Heart emojis. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I felt my stomach drop. When he came out, I asked him who Bria was. He didn't even flinch. "She's just a work friend," he said casually. "You're being paranoid again." But after that conversation, his phone suddenly had a password. For 20 years, we'd never had passwords on our phones. Now he guarded his like it held state secrets. Things got worse. He stopped being affectionate. He'd come to bed late, scroll on his phone with his back to me, and fall asleep without a word. The intimacy we'd shared for 2 decades just vanished. But what hurt more than the distance was the criticism. Suddenly, nothing I did was good enough. My cooking was too heavy. I was letting myself go. He'd make comments about women at his office who still take care of themselves and dress professionally. Every word felt like a small cut. I tried everything to fix it. I started waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. I changed my hair, bought new clothes, watched cooking videos to make healthier meals. I smiled more, complained less, tried to be the woman he seemed to want, but nothing worked. Because the problem wasn't me. It never was. He was already somewhere else, with someone else. The worst part? He started treating me like I worked for him. He'd leave dishes in the sink, expecting me to clean them. He'd ask, "What's for dinner?" Like I was the help. Gone was the partner who used to cook with me, who thanked me for everything I did. I'd become invisible to him, except when he needed something. And then I started noticing the looks at church. Women I'd known for years would get quiet when I approached. They'd exchange glances, offer tight, sympathetic smiles. Someone knew something. Everyone knew something, except me. Or maybe I knew too, but I was too afraid to admit that my marriage, my 20-year partnership, was already over. The incidents didn't just continue, they escalated. My 50th birthday came and went without so much as a card from Marcus. He forgot. Completely forgot. But 2 weeks later, I heard him on the phone ordering flowers and a designer handbag for his assistant's birthday. When I mentioned it, he said, "It's professional courtesy, Michelle. She works hard for me." The message was clear. She mattered. I didn't. I started finding things. Hotel receipts tucked in his suit pockets. Charges on our joint credit card for restaurants I'd never been to. When I confronted him, he had an answer for everything. Work conference, client dinner, team building event. Every excuse was delivered with such confidence that I started questioning my own sanity. Was I being paranoid? Was I the problem? Then he started comparing me to other women, openly, creelly. We'd be watching TV and he'd point at an actress and say, "See, that's how a woman should look at 50. Or he'd mention a colleague who just had twins and still looks amazing. Each comment was designed to make me feel small, inadequate, and old. And it worked. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself anymore. Not because I'd changed physically, but because he'd stolen my confidence, my self-worth, piece by piece. Jordan, our 23-year-old son, noticed. He came home from work one evening, saw his father barely acknowledge me at dinner, and pulled me aside later. "Mom, are you and Dad okay? He treats you like, I don't know, it's not right." Hearing my son voice what I'd been denying broke something in me. If Jordan could see it, it was real. I wasn't crazy. The fourth incident hit differently. Marcus stopped wearing his wedding ring. After 23 years of marriage, he just took it off. When I asked why, he said it was uncomfortable and that it interfered with his workouts. A wedding ring, the symbol of our commitment, gone. Around the same time, I noticed large withdrawals from our joint account. $3,000 here, $5,000 there. He wasn't even hiding it anymore. He didn't respect me enough to hide it. That's when I started documenting everything. I took photos of receipts, screenshots of bank statements, saved text messages. My best friend, Patricia, had been through a divorce and she told me, "Michelle, I don't want to scare you, but you need to protect yourself. Just go talk to a lawyer, know your rights. Knowledge is power." I made an appointment. I didn't tell Marcus. For the first time in our marriage, I had a secret too. My mental health was deteriorating. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at night replaying every conversation, every criticism, every cold look. I developed anxiety so bad that I'd get chest pains. I lost 15 pounds in 2 months, not from the gym, but from stress. I was becoming a shadow of myself. Then came the fifth and most devastating incident, our daughter Jasmine's college graduation dinner. We'd had this planned for months, a celebration at her favorite restaurant with family. The day of, Marcus texted me, "Something came up at work, can't make it. Tell Jasmine I'm sorry." I was furious, but I covered for him. I smiled through dinner, pretended he was sick, and watched my daughter's face fall when she realized her father had chosen work over her milestone moment. 2 days later, Jasmine showed me something on Instagram, a photo. Marcus, at a restaurant, the same night as her graduation dinner. But he wasn't alone. He was sitting across from a young woman, beautiful black, couldn't have been older than 30. She'd posted it with the caption, "Special dinner with my favorite person," and tagged the location. The same city, the same night. He hadn't been working. He'd been with her. I confronted him the moment he walked through the door. I showed him the photo. Instead of apologizing, instead of explaining, he exploded. "You're paranoid. You stalking me on social media now? That's pathetic, Michelle. Maybe if you took care of yourself instead of obsessing over me, we wouldn't be in this situation. You've let yourself go. You're bitter. You're suffocating me." His words were weapons, and each one landed exactly where he intended. That night, Marcus moved into the guest room. He said he needed space, but we both knew what it meant. Our marriage was over in everything but name. And the worst part? He started criticizing me in front of Jordan and Jasmine, making little comments about my cooking, my appearance, my attitude during family dinners. Our children would sit there uncomfortable, not knowing how to defend me without causing a bigger fight. I'd never felt more alone in my life. Our 25th wedding anniversary was approaching. 25 years, a quarter of a century. Despite everything, despite the coldness, the distance, the obvious affair, some foolish part of me hoped he'd remember what we'd built together. I planned an intimate dinner at the restaurant where he'd proposed. I bought a new dress. I was ready to fight for us one last time. When I mentioned the anniversary, Marcus looked at me and said, "Don't worry, I have something special planned." The way he said it should have warned me. There was something cold in his smile, something final. But I chose to hear hope in those words instead of the goodbye they actually were. 2 weeks before our anniversary, Marcus asked me to sit down. It was a Wednesday evening. I remember because Jasmine had just called to tell me about her new job, and I was still smiling when Marcus walked into the living room with his arms crossed. No preamble, no gentle lead-in. He just looked at me and said, "Michelle, I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for years. I want a divorce." The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. 25 years, and this was how it ended? A casual announcement like he was telling me he wanted Chinese food for dinner? I asked him if we could try counseling, if we could work on things. He laughed. Actually laughed. "There's nothing to work on," he said. "I've moved on." Then came the words that I'll never forget. "I've been seeing someone. Her name is Bria. She's 28. She works in my office." 2 years. He'd been cheating on me for 2 years. While I was trying to save our marriage, losing sleep, questioning myself, he was building a whole other life. "She makes me feel young again, Michelle," he said, looking at me like I was a stranger. "You've aged. We're in different places now." Aged? That word hung in the air like poison. I'd aged? I'd aged supporting him, raising our children, holding down our home while he climbed the corporate ladder. I'd aged being faithful, being loyal, being everything a wife should be. And this was my reward? But he wasn't finished. "I want you out of the apartment," he said, matter-of-factly. "I'll give you until the end of the month, but I need you gone. I'm moving Bria in, and it'll be awkward if you're still here." The apartment. My apartment. The one my grandmother's inheritance had helped purchase. The one where I'd raised our children, created our home. He wanted me out like I was a tenant whose lease had expired. I sat there in shock, tears streaming down my face, feeling like my entire world had collapsed. 25 years erased in a 10-minute conversation. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and left. Just walked out. I later found out he went straight to her place. While I was falling apart, he was celebrating his freedom. I called my sister, Denise, sobbing so hard I could barely speak. She rushed over immediately. I told her everything, the affair, the divorce, him demanding I leave the apartment. And that's when Denise grabbed my shoulders and said something that changed everything. Michelle, wait, girl. That apartment is yours. Your name is on that deed. Not his, yours. It hit me like lightning. My grandmother's voice echoed in my mind. Always keep something in your name. Always. The apartment was mine. Legally, completely, entirely mine. Marcus had been living in my home for 15 years, and he'd somehow convinced himself and almost convinced me that it was his. Something shifted in that moment. The grief transformed into clarity. The pain crystallized into power. Marcus wanted to humiliate me. He wanted to discard me after 25 years like I was nothing. He wanted a show for our anniversary. Fine. I'd give him a show he'd never forget. I wiped my tears, looked at my sister, and said, "Call the lawyer. We're going to need those divorce papers ready. And Denise, tell her to make them public ready. If Marcus wants to make an announcement at our anniversary party, so do I." The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, I wasn't fighting as a woman begging for scraps of love. I was fighting as a woman who finally remembered her worth. The very next morning, I was sitting in attorney Sharon Mitchell's office. Sharon came highly recommended, a Black woman who specialized in divorce cases and had a reputation for protecting her clients fiercely. I brought everything: bank statements, the property deed, screenshots of the Instagram photo, hotel receipts, everything I'd been documenting. Sharon reviewed it all carefully, then looked up at me with a slight smile. "Michelle, this apartment, it's 100% yours, your name only. In the state of Georgia, that means it's your separate property. He has no legal claim to it whatsoever." Hearing those words out loud felt like oxygen returning to my lungs. But Sharon had more to tell me. She'd done some digging. Apparently, Marcus had been sloppy. He used the joint credit card to buy an engagement ring 3 weeks ago, $5,000. He was planning to propose to Bria. My husband of 25 years was planning to propose to another woman before our divorce was even filed. I told Jordan and Jasmine everything that evening. I couldn't hide it anymore. They deserved to know the truth about their father. Jordan was furious. I'd never seen him so angry. He wanted to confront Marcus immediately. Jasmine cried, but then she looked at me with these fierce eyes and said, "Mom, whatever you need, we're with you, not him. You." Their support gave me strength I didn't know I had. Then came the strategic part. I had to let Marcus think he'd won. For the next 2 weeks, I played the defeated wife perfectly. I shuffled around the apartment looking broken. I told him I'd start looking for a place to move. I agreed that yes, it was best if we went through with the anniversary party, for appearances, I said quietly. He seemed satisfied, relieved even. He thought I was going to quietly disappear, make things easy for him. What I didn't tell him was that he was planning the anniversary party that would become his public humiliation. Marcus had invited everyone, my family, his family, our church friends, his colleagues. He told everyone we were celebrating 25 years. But I knew the truth. He was planning to make his announcement there, to tell everyone he was leaving me, probably with Bria on his arm. He wanted an audience for my destruction. So I prepared my own announcement. Sharon drafted the divorce papers citing adultery and emotional abuse. We made copies of everything: the property deed, evidence of the affair, financial records showing his unauthorized withdrawals. Everything was organized in a folder, ready to be presented. Sharon even agreed to attend the party, posing as a family friend, ready to serve him the papers at the right moment. I practiced my speech in the bathroom mirror every night. I rehearsed my tone, my posture, my words. I wasn't going to yell or try or beg. I was going to be calm, dignified, and devastating. Every word had to land perfectly. The day of the party, Denise came over early. She brought her hairstylist friend, a makeup artist, and 3 dress options. "You're gonna walk in there looking like the queen you are," she said. "Let him see exactly what he's losing." They transformed me. My hair was styled in elegant curls, my makeup was flawless, and I wore an emerald green dress that hugged every curve. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked powerful. I looked free. Before we left, I set up my phone to record. I positioned it on a shelf with a clear view of the room. I needed documentation of everything that was about to happen. Sharon had her phone ready too. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about protection. I needed evidence in case Marcus tried to twist the narrative later. As I walked toward the restaurant, my heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Marcus wanted a performance. He was about to get the show of his life. And this time, I was writing the script.
The anniversary party was held at Nikolai's Roof, one of the nicest restaurants in Atlanta. Marcus had made reservations months ago. Ironically, he paid for the entire event. The venue was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, elegant table settings, soft jazz playing in the background. About 50 people were there, our families, close friends from church, some of his colleagues. Everyone dressed up, smiling, ready to celebrate what they thought was a love story. When I walked in, the room went quiet for just a moment. I saw heads turn, I heard someone whisper, "Michelle looks amazing." Marcus was standing near the bar, and when he saw me, his expression flickered. Surprise, discomfort, maybe even regret. For a split second, I saw him really look at me, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. But then his face hardened again. He couldn't let himself acknowledge what he was throwing away. And then I saw her, Bria. She was there, sitting at a table near the front, wearing a tight red dress, her youth on a full display like a trophy. The audacity, the disrespect. She caught my eye and smirked. Actually smirked, like she'd already won. My sister squeezed my hand. "Breathe," she whispered. "You've got this." After dinner, Marcus stood up and tapped his glass. The room fell silent. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," he began, his voice smooth and confident. 25 years is a significant milestone. He went on about our history, about building a life together, and for a moment, people were smiling, nodding, thinking this was a tribute. Then his tone changed. "But I have to be honest with all of you," Marcus continued, and I felt the shift in the room. 25 years is enough. I've spent a quarter of a century in this marriage, and I've realized I want something different. Someone younger, someone who makes me feel alive again. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother stood up, her hand over her mouth. His own mother looked horrified, but Marcus kept going. "Michelle, I want you out of the apartment tomorrow. It's time for both of us to move on." Bria was smirking openly now. Some of his colleagues looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My family was in tears. My sister, my cousins, even my father looked like he wanted to leap across the room. The humiliation Marcus intended was landing exactly as he'd planned. Except for one thing. He'd forgotten who he was dealing with. I stood up slowly, smoothed my dress, and walked toward him. "Marcus," I said calmly, "may I have the microphone?" He looked confused, but handed it over, probably thinking I was going to beg or cry. The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice steady and clear. 25 years is significant, but there's something he forgot, something important. I reached into my purse and pulled out the property deed, holding it up for everyone to see. "This apartment that Marcus wants me out of tomorrow, the one he's been living in for the past 15 years, it's mine. My grandmother left me an inheritance, and I bought that apartment. My name is on this deed. My name only, not his, just mine." Marcus's face drained of all color. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The room erupted in murmurs. I wasn't finished. "And Marcus, since you wanted to make this announcement public, let me make mine." I nodded to Sharon, who stood up from her table and walked over with a manila envelope. "These are divorce papers. already filed. I'm citing adultery because, yes, everyone, he's been cheating with that woman right there for 2 years and emotional abuse. Sharon handed the papers directly to Marcus. He just stood there frozen, staring at them like they were written in a foreign language. I turned back to the microphone. So, Marcus, you want someone younger? You're free. Congratulations. But you're the one moving out. Tomorrow. The apartment is mine. The life you thought you were taking from me, you never had it to give away. Bria's smirk vanished. Her eyes went wide as reality crashed down on her. She thought she was getting a successful man with assets. Instead, she was getting a middle-aged man who'd have to start over with nothing. I watched her face change from smug to panicked in real time. My family erupted. Applause, shouts of hallelujah. My sister yelling, "That's my sister." My father stood up with tears in his eyes, nodding at me with pride. Even some of Marcus's family members looked at him with disgust. His mother was shaking her head, ashamed. Marcus tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. He looked around the room, desperately searching for support, for sympathy, for anything. He found nothing. Just judgment, just consequences. I handed the microphone back to him, picked up my purse, and walked toward the exit. My head held high, my spine straight, my dignity intact. As I reached the door, I heard my cousin shout, "Now that's how you do it." The last thing I saw was Marcus standing there, divorce papers in his trembling hands, while Bria gathered her things and rushed out a side exit. I walked out of that restaurant a free woman.
The call started before I even got home that night. My phone was buzzing nonstop, Marcus calling, texting, leaving voicemails. "Michelle, we need to talk. That was unnecessary. You embarrassed me. Call me back, please. Please." Now he was saying please. I blocked his number. I had nothing left to say to him. Within a week, Bria dumped him. Apparently, when she realized Marcus didn't own the apartment, didn't have significant assets in his name, and was about to pay alimony to a wife he'd publicly humiliated, she decided he wasn't so appealing anymore. Someone from his office told my son that she'd actually started dating another manager, someone younger, richer, and unmarried. Marcus had blown up his entire life for a woman who never really wanted him. She'd wanted his lifestyle, the lifestyle I'd helped him build. The housing situation was poetic justice. Marcus had to move in with his younger brother, Kenneth, who lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in College Park. Kenneth's wife was not happy about it. I heard through a mutual friend that Marcus was sleeping on their couch, surrounded by moving boxes, trying to figure out his next move. The man who demanded I leave his apartment was now a 54-year-old couch surfer. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Jordan and Jasmine cut off contact with their father completely. Jordan sent him one text. "What you did to Mom is unforgivable. Don't contact me until you figured out how to be a decent human being." Jasmine was even more blunt. "You're not the man I thought you were. I'm ashamed to call you my father right now." Marcus tried to explain, tried to justify his actions, but our children weren't hearing it. They'd watched me suffer for years while he paraded his affair. Their loyalty was with me, and it was absolute. The church community wrapped around me like a shield. Sister Patricia organized meals for me for 2 weeks straight. The prayer groom came to the apartment and prayed over me, declared blessings over my life. But something else happened that I didn't expect. Women started coming forward with their own stories about Marcus. Quiet conversations in the church parking lot, whispered confessions over coffee. He made inappropriate comments to me at the Christmas party 3 years ago. He asked for my number once when you weren't around. He told me I looked good in my dress in a way that made me uncomfortable. My husband hadn't just been unfaithful with Bria. He'd been disrespectful to women in our community for years. I'd been the last to know. His job performance tanked. You can't focus on sales numbers when your personal life is imploding publicly. His boss called him in for a performance review. Marcus had missed quotas 2 months in a row. The promotion he'd been expecting went to someone else. Karma was working overtime. Marcus tried to turn his own family against me, painting himself as the victim. She blindsided me. She humiliated me in public. She's vindictive. But his mother shut that down immediately. She called me personally to apologize for her son's behavior and told me, "You did what you had to do, baby." He brought this on himself. Even his siblings weren't buying his victim narrative. They'd seen how he treated me. They'd watched the disrespect. They knew the truth. Denise moved into the guest room temporarily. I didn't want to be alone, and honestly, I needed her. Some nights I'd wake up crying, not because I missed Marcus, but because I was grieving 25 years of my life, grieving the man I thought I'd married, grieving the future I'd imagined. Denise would sit with me, let me cry, remind me that I was going to be okay. I started therapy with Dr. Lorraine Hughes, a therapist who specialized in trauma and betrayal. Those sessions saved me. I learned that what Marcus had done was emotional abuse, the gaslighting, the criticism, the manipulation. I learned that my worth wasn't tied to his perception of me. I learned how to rebuild myself from the inside out. Then Marcus crossed the line. 2 months after the party, he showed up at the apartment at 11 p.m., drunk, banging on the door. "Michelle, let me in. We need to talk. You can't just throw away 25 years. I called the police immediately. When they arrived, Marcus was still there, slurring his words, demanding to be let into his home. The officers explained to him that he was trespassing. I filed a restraining order the next day. He wasn't allowed within 500 feet of me or the apartment. The divorce proceedings moved forward quickly. Sharon was relentless. Marcus had no leverage. The evidence of adultery was ironclad. The apartment was legally mine, and his lawyer knew they had no case. He tried to fight for alimony from me, claiming he'd sacrificed his career to support the family. Sharon laughed in the mediation room. "Your client made a 6 figures last year while having an affair. Try again." And then, in a twist I almost couldn't believe, Bria reached out. She sent me a DM on Instagram. "I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know the full story. He told me you two were already separated. I made a mistake." She wanted absolution. She wanted me to tell her she wasn't a homewrecker. I read the message, shook my head, and blocked her. Some people don't deserve your forgiveness or your energy. The aftermath was messy, painful, and exhausting. But with every day that passed, I felt lighter, stronger, more myself. The woman Marcus had tried to diminish was rising from the ashes. 8 months after that anniversary party, our divorce was finalized. I sat in Sharon's office as she slid the papers across her desk with a smile. "It's done, Michelle. You're officially free." I kept the apartment, my apartment. Our retirement accounts were split fairly down the middle, which was only right since I'd contributed just as much as he had over the years. But here's the ironic justice that still makes me smile. Marcus has to pay me alimony. Not a massive amount, but enough. Every month, a portion of his paycheck comes to me. The man who wanted someone younger, who told me I'd aged, who demanded I leave, he's now legally obligated to support me financially. The universe has a sense of humor. Jordan and Jasmine have slowly rebuilt a relationship with their father, but it's on their terms. Supervised visits, holidays are split. They're cordial, but not close. Jordan told me recently, "Mom, I'll always have a relationship with Dad because he's my father, but you're my hero. What you did took courage." Jasmine echoed the same sentiment. My children saw me stand up for myself, and it taught them something powerful about self-respect and boundaries. That alone made everything worth it. As for me, I'm thriving in ways I never imagined. 6 months after the divorce, I was promoted to regional operations manager at my company, a position I'd been overlooked for twice before. My boss told me, "Michelle, you've always been excellent, but this past year, there's something different about you. You're confident, focused, unstoppable." Turns out, removing dead weight from your life makes room for blessings. I picked up new hobbies. I joined a book club with women from church. I I started taking salsa dancing lessons, something I'd always wanted to do, but Marcus said was silly. I traveled to Cape Town with Denise last year, my first international trip in a decade. We ate amazing food, explored the coastline, laughed until our stomachs hurt. I felt alive again, young again. Not because of a man, but because I'd reclaimed myself. I even started dating again. Nothing serious, I'm taking my time, but I've met kind men who open doors, who ask about my day, who treat me with respect. Men who remind me that Marcus was the exception, not the rule. One man, David, a retired school principal I met at a community event, told me on our second date, "You're remarkable, Michelle. Whoever let you go was a fool." I smiled and thought, yes, he was. The apartment feels completely different now. I redecorated everything. New paint, warm golds and deep blues that make me happy. New furniture. I turned the guest room where Marcus used to sleep into a home office. Every trace of him is gone. Sometimes I walk through the rooms and think about my grandmother. I can almost hear her voice. "See, baby girl, I told you to keep something in your name." She knew. Somehow she knew I'd need that protection, and I am so grateful. Grandma Ruth would be so proud of the woman I'd become. Marcus tried to reconcile, believe it or not. About a year after the divorce, he called from a new number. "Michelle, I made a terrible mistake. I was going through something, a midlife crisis. I miss you. I miss us. Can we try again?" I actually laughed, not cruelly, but genuinely amused. "Marcus, you didn't lose me because you made a mistake. You lost me because you showed me exactly who you are. And I finally believed you. The answer is no. It will always be no." I hung up and blocked the number. That conversation gave me closure I didn't even know I needed. His midlife crisis cost him everything. His marriage, his home, his children's respect, his reputation, his dignity. Meanwhile, I gained everything. My peace, my power, my joy, my life. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled things, the public confrontation, the dramatic reveal. My answer is always the same, not for 1 second. Marcus humiliated me publicly, so I reclaimed my dignity publicly. I showed my children, my community, and most importantly, myself, that I would not be disrespected, that I knew my worth, that I would fight for myself when no one else would. I'm 53 now, and I've never felt more beautiful, more powerful, or more free. This isn't the life I planned 25 years ago, but it's better than anything I could have imagined. Because it's mine. Fully, completely, unapologetically mine. Looking back on everything, there are lessons I learned that I want to share with anyone watching this who might be going through something similar. First and most important, trust your intuition. I knew something was wrong years before I had proof. My gut was screaming at me, but I silenced it because I wanted to believe in my marriage. Don't make that mistake. If something feels off, it probably is. Your intuition is protecting you. Listen to it. Document everything. I cannot stress this enough. Those bank statements, text message screenshots, receipts, and photos I collected saved me in court. Marcus tried to paint me as vindictive and unstable, but I had evidence. Facts don't lie. If you're in a situation where you sense things falling apart, start keeping records immediately. Dates, times, conversations, transactions, document it all. You might never need it, but if you do, you be grateful you have it. Know what's legally yours. That property deed saved my life. If my grandmother hadn't insisted I keep something in my name, I would have been homeless at 52, starting over from nothing. Ladies and gentlemen too, always have something in your own name. A bank account, a property, investments, something that's yours alone. It's not about being sneaky or planning for a divorce.
It's about protecting yourself. My grandmother used to say, always have something in your name. And those words were a lifeline I didn't even know I'd need. Don't let anyone dim your light to make themselves comfortable. For years, I made myself smaller, quieter, less confident because Marcus couldn't handle my strength. I apologized for things that weren't my fault. I dimmed my light so he could shine brighter. Never again. If someone needs you to shrink so they can feel big, they don't deserve you. Period.
Those 25 years weren't wasted. Yes, the marriage ended, but I raised two incredible children. I built a career. I created memories, learned lessons, and grew into the woman I am today. Don't let a bad ending erase all the good that came before. Jordan and Jasmine are my legacy, and they were worth every moment. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Marcus leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. I just didn't know it at the time. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like loss was actually liberation. Here's my advice to anyone watching. Protect yourself financially from day one. Build your support system before you need it. Cultivate friendships, maintain family connections, stay involved in your community. When crisis hits, you'll need people who love you unconditionally. Don't be afraid to stand up publicly when you've been wronged. Silence protects abusers. Speaking up protects you and warns others. And finally, remember this. Age is not a weakness. It's wisdom. It's experience. It's survival. Marcus tried to weaponize my age against me, as if turning 50 meant I'd lost value. But I've never been more valuable than I am right now. I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I will never settle for less again. You deserve respect. You deserve honesty. You deserve loyalty. You deserve love that doesn't humiliate you, diminish you, or discard you. And if you're not getting that, you deserve the courage to walk away. Or, in my case, to stand your ground and make them leave. So that's my story. The story of how my husband left me after 25 years for someone younger and how I turned his moment of triumph into his greatest regret. He wanted me speechless. Instead, I left him homeless. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think I should have confronted Marcus publicly at that anniversary party, or should I have handled it privately? I'm genuinely curious what you think. And if you've been through something similar, betrayal, disrespect, a relationship that tried to break you but didn't, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. There's a whole community here supporting each other. If this story gave you even a moment of satisfaction, please hit that like button. It really helps more people find these stories. And if you're new to Voices of Untold Stories, welcome. Subscribe and ring that notification bell because we share real stories of betrayal, justice, and triumph every week. Stories that remind us we're stronger than we think. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. Your comments, your support, your stories, they matter. Next week, I'll be sharing another incredible story about a mother-in-law who thought she could control everything. And so her daughter-in-law taught her a lesson she'll never forget. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until then, remember, know your worth, protect your peace, and never, ever let anyone make you feel small. I'm Michelle, and this is Voices of Untold Stories.